In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about my hands-on impressions with Wild Hearts. This is, of course, the new monster hunting game that was announced not too long ago. That's being developed by Koei Tecmo and Omega Force, published by Electronic Arts. That's coming to next-gen consoles and PC on February 17th of next year. We were given a 3-day access period of this game to play the very beginning of it to kind of get a feel of how this game's going to play. And in this video, I kind of run you through how it plays, what I like about it, what I don't like about it, and if this is something that you should keep on your radar if you're a fan of Monster Hunter. So let's talk about the things that I like about the game first. I think the first thing that's rather obvious when you're looking at the gameplay is that it looks a lot like Monster Hunter. I mean, visually, combat-wise, there is a lot of familiarity there, and I think that's a good thing in this case. Monster Hunter is kind of the gold standard for monster hunting type games, and to be compared to that, to look like that, is an absolute compliment to this game, and I think that your first impression will be it looks very, very similar to that game. It also has 8 different weapons and lots of armor in the game, so there is going to be customization. There are other weapons in this game that are not in Monster Hunter, like the umbrella, for instance, which we won't be able to show you in this gameplay footage. But there are, different weapons to use. There are obviously similar weapons as well, like the bow and katana that you would find in Monster Hunter. But you're going to have a variety of different weapons, and they seem to have different skills attached to them, allowing you to do different things with it. I really like the world environments. Not graphically, I won't say that the graphics are the best looking environments, but the way that they're designed, the art design of them has this sort of feudal Japan high fantasy feel to them, like it's been overgrown, and there's these fantastical creatures in them. The game itself is not, using a lot of like dragons and crazy enemies. It's kind of like souped up versions of animals or insects or things you would find naturally in nature that have kind of been enhanced by nature. So you're going to see things that resemble real creatures in this game more so than like dragons and things like that. But I think it has a really high fantasy nature element to it that I really enjoy and makes exploring the game a lot of fun. Another thing that I want to mention is that the combat feels really good. One of my biggest gripes about Monster Hunter, Capcom games in general, is that the controls tend to feel clunky. And I realize that in Monster Hunter, this is probably designed intentionally so that you can't just dart in and out of combat easily and dodge everything and get back into combat. But I like the way the character moves in this game. He runs faster with his weapon out. He dodges more easily. He recovers from things more easily. And so if you're not a real fan of the way Monster Hunter handles the main control of the character, I think you might enjoy this game a bit more. Or if you're a new player and you're not super familiar with Monster Hunter, and maybe Monster Hunter is a bit much for you, this might be a better gradient into this type of gameplay than Monster Hunter World is. And lastly, I think the thing that really sets this apart from Monster Hunter in general is the building mechanics in this game. You can build on the fly while in combat, and you can obviously build structures out of combat as well. But using structures on the fly in combat really changes the way that combat flows. And it's handled very, very well. Like, it feels natural. You can add different things to combat. You can build towers, you can build springs, you can build ballista, you can build all these different things while you're in combat on the fly very seamlessly. And it just adds another dimension to combat because you're not just thinking about, okay, what's my next weapon attack going to be? I'm going to set up this thing, get on top of the enemy, etc. And you can really plan out and get creative with it. I think that's particularly great. Now that we talk a little bit about the good things, the things I like about the game, let's talk a little bit about the negatives of this game. First of all, there are only 8 weapons. I mean, this is also a pro that they do have 8 weapons. This is also a con when you compare it to Monster Hunter, which has 15 weapons. It's got half. And this game is a full-price game, $69.99 on PC and console at release, which means I don't know that you're going to get as much out of this game as you would out of Monster Hunter World because of that. Now, I expect them to add more weapons after launch. With 4 months away being to the launch, I don't expect them to add any more before. But I would expect this game to get more and more weapons after launch. So, in terms of value, that puts this game a little bit lower than Monster Hunter already, if you're just looking at the weapons. Another change is that there is only 3-person co-op in this game instead of 4 Monster Hunter World, which means you can only play with 2 other friends and not 3. This is, probably a pro for some people. Some people probably don't, play with a lot of people, and this makes it easier to get a full game. The game's balanced around 3 players in some cases. It's enemy scale with the number of players, just like Monster Hunter, so it's not necessarily harder or easier. But only having 1 person less in the party, I think, is probably more of a negative than a pro, because you're going to get less variety of players in there. Maybe you want to play with more people and you can't. So that's kind of unfortunate. Another thing that's kind of a bit of a negative is while the building in combat is absolutely fantastic, outside of combat so far, it feels pretty uninspired. Very, very basic things. And, I mean, it's still early. We're only seeing a fraction of it. As you kill more and more monsters, you're going to, or beasts, you're going to unlock more and more stuff. So I'm hoping that this progresses better, but on a first impression, it seems kind of simple outside of combat, even though the building in combat is fantastic. I really hope there are lots of different things you can build outside of combat to kind of give it more of a survival genre aspect. You know, being able to build shelters and things like that would be really, really cool. I don't think they're going to be in this game, but I would absolutely love to see that. The next thing I want to talk about is the graphics of this game. Graphically, the game is inferior to Monster Hunter World if you're just looking at the performance of the graphics and the visuals, and that game is a few years old. So that's really, really unfortunate. I realize that this game is not even in its beta stages yet, and the graphics will probably improve before launch, but we're 4 months away. And in my experience, games that are 4 months away that put out demos, which is kind of effectively what this is, are in much better shape than this. So that has me a little bit alarmed. And on top of that, to compound that issue, the performance of the game during this, you know, alpha, pre-alpha, whatever build that we're playing, is the performance has absolutely been abysmal. Like, you can't get solid 60 FPS on a 3090 at 1440p. You know what I mean? Like, we're not even putting it, and not even everything on max. The constant frame drops are all over the place. The game crashes. There's bugs. I'm a little bit concerned that this is the first showing of this game. That's what you have to show from Koei Tecmo and from EA. Like, it's not exactly putting their best foot forward when I'm looking through the Discord and lots of people are having this issue that are part of this event. So that makes me a bit concerned. If there was more time left to develop this game, I would be far less concerned. Again, I know that this is not a beta or a completed game, and I'm not trying to judge it like it is. But when you have this many issues, when you normally don't have this many issues in any preview that you're playing or taking a look at, it's a bit concerning with 4 months away. So we'll have to see how much they can dramatically change this in the next 4 months. Otherwise, I have a big feeling this game is going to be delayed. And for those of you looking at the footage wondering, why doesn't it look that great? And, you know, why isn't it in 4K? And why isn't it in all of these? It's because the only way I could capture this and still get the game to run relatively well is by setting some things down. So that's kind of why the footage looks a little bit like the way it was, or it is, and it's not as nice as it would be in a lot of other videos. So final thoughts, sort of just summing up this game. I think it has a bit of an identity crisis. It seems like they were developing a game that was similar to Monster Hunter, and they were like, we want to do this in feudal Japan with a more natural setting. And at some point along the way, they were like, you know, it'd be cool, let's add crafting and building things to this game. And they're like, yeah. And that'll set it apart from Monster Hunter. And there's sort of this kind of ham-fisted explanation of why you can build things out of thin air in the middle of the game to fit into this sort of already existing concept. And it kind of conflicts a bit, and it's just a bit weird. There's a bit of a juxtaposition when it comes to, you know, the different concepts of the game. And also because the things that you craft in your game world are persistent, it sort of takes from sandbox games that allow you to build and craft and maybe have some survival elements. I don't think this game has any survival elements from what I've seen so far. But where you can build in your game world, and then when you come back to it, things are still there, and you spend time gathering resources and building. That's very much a thing in this game. But it doesn't seem like they took it far enough in that aspect. What I would have loved to see with this game is leaning more into that MMO sandbox genre, and then you kind of get together with people and hunt monsters, take the materials, build better weapons and armor, and build up your base, and maybe every so often your base gets attacked by monsters and you go out and hunt monsters together. Kind of like Chimera Land, except done much, much better. I think this game would shine more in that aspect, but instead it leans far more to the Monster Hunter side of things, and the building kind of seems just jammed into it. So obviously I want to reserve final judgment for this game, but right now I'm a bit concerned. I honestly hope that, you know, the next gameplay we see of this game, or the next press demo or press briefing for this game, is a couple months down the road. I would really like to see this game after a couple more months, so I can see how much has been done to it, see if it runs better, see if it looks better, see what changes they've made to the game, to get a better sense of how it's going to be. But right now, as I mentioned, it comes out on February 17th. That's just over 4 months away. It's October 10th. And I'm a little bit worried this game is not going to be ready to go by then. And I kind of hope, honestly, that it gets delayed, because the game has a lot of potential. I definitely think if this game gets all the love and care that it really should get, it would actually be a Monster Hunter competitor, but I don't know that they're going to be able to do that in 4 months. So what do you guys think? Am I crazy here to think that this could actually be a Monster Hunter competitor if it got a little bit of TLC? Or do you guys think that there's just no way it'll be able to compete based on what you've seen so far? Let me know in the comments below.